What's up, everybody? Welcome to Podcast Now. I'm Alex, and in this video, we gotta talk about Naughty Dog's next game. Now, we don't get any actual details as to the game itself, but we kind of get almost like the business end to it. I find it a little interesting. I want to go over it with you guys in this video. Basically, this comes from an online panel that Neil Druckmann did with Ken Levine, and it was actually set to private, so there's nothing that you can see anymore. We're just simply going from the first couple people that posted it online, kind of like the bullet point structure, right? And then everybody's just reporting on that. Well, that's basically what I'm going to do as well, because you can't actually go in and watch the whole video. I imagine this is actually all that was said. Otherwise, if there was more that was said, we would have gotten more of this reporting, right? So again, more business type stuff, not necessarily the game's this or the game's that's going to star this character. Not so much that, but I do feel like this gives us a little confidence that maybe the game's not too far away. So I'll go to Rhino on Twitter just for this, again, bullet point structure. The game has been in development since 2020. Sony will announce it when they see fit. Now, specifically to that point, just real fast, this is more like Neil Druckmann actually said, they don't go after him, right? And that's a later point. He's the director, he works on it on his own, and Sony doesn't come in and micromanage it. But what Sony actually does do is Sony dictates when they can reveal it, because he says, obviously he can't reveal it. They will pick when they reveal it, and they handle that kind of stuff. We'll come back to that, but I just wanted to say that real fast. So, he's the director, Sony doesn't interfere, and he's looking forward to revealing it to the world. And then, kind of speculation that it seems like this is the new IP, because The Last of Us Part 3 is not Naughty Dog's next project. The sad thing is, The Last of Us Part 3, whether you liked or didn't like 2, it's going to be a very long time between 1 and 3, right? 1 was 2013. 2020. I would not be shocked at all if we don't get Last of Us Part 3 till 2027, 2028. I really think it could be that far out, if not maybe even a little bit later. And it's just, remember when Uncharted came out in Uncharted 1 through 3 came out, I think 4 or 5 years, just in all. And even if you throw in freaking Uncharted 4, you're still not even going, a full decade? It's not even a full decade for 4 games. For The Last of Us 1, 2, 3, it could very well be 15 years, which is just, this is why God of War wrapped it up after 2 games with Ragnarok. Honestly, I don't think they should have, but I think that's just kind of the cruel reality of things nowadays. But anyway, the main thing I do find interesting, the 2 points, I guess. Number 1, so 2020, and you got to remember, so much of them were working on the multiplayer game, and that was just, I guess, it was a lot of wasted time. I still would have liked the multiplayer game, but it is what it is. Whatever. I understand why they canceled it, and I actually root for them doing something like that. But you lose a lot of time when that happens. So 2020, again, that's kind of why I project forward and think, okay, Last of Us 2027, 2020, which is like PS6. We're not even talking about freaking PS5 anymore. But this game that he's doing, whether it's a sci-fi thing or a medieval thing or whatever genre people think it is, on any given day, there's been some evidence on different stuff, by the way, right? But hopefully it gets shown next year. I saw a lot of speculation today on that, where it's okay, the best news, it's not even news, it is speculation. The best thing you can hope for is that the game gets announced next year. Now, in terms of the Sony handling it thing, it very much feels like, and I can like this to a degree, and I think I want a happy medium between what I'm about to say and other things. For Sony to hold on to things so long and to announce them and then to have the game come out 6-8 months later, there is actually a lot of good in that. What I find frustrating is when there isn't necessarily a balance. When you have a Wolverine that was announced 3 years ago that's got absolutely nothing, and you could say, well, maybe that was part of the past, ownership or past leadership, of PlayStation, where it's hey, they don't do that anymore, and I'm not really in favor of the Wonder Womans of the world, or even Kingdom Hearts 4 at this point. Stop announcing games 3, 4, 5 years before you get it. And there's so many reasons why companies do it. I know all of them, but that doesn't mean I have to like it, right? I understand why they do it, but I very much don't like it. When it comes to PlayStation and this new strategy, I guess it's also kind of frustrating, because it's when you do it too strict, and I'm not saying do it 5 years out, but when you do it too strict, you also make it look like you don't have anything, right? Because people are just waiting, and then it just takes so long to get there. And when you think about something like The Last of Us Part 3, not only is it 3, 4, 5, 6 years away, I can keep going, just keep adding numbers, right? Not only that, it's that many years away from being shown as well. Like, you're not getting a single thing from that game visually until, maybe a year before that game comes out. So, again, like I do think I'd rather take this versus like showing a game 4 years and then 4 years later, then you get something that the game comes out 2 more years after that. Like a Star Wars Eclipse, Wonder Woman, Wolf Among Us, Kingdom Hearts. There's a lot of examples, right? Blade is kind of the newest one, maybe even Jurassic Park, although maybe not, right? Those are kind of the anti, what we're talking about here. And it is interesting that PlayStation, I guess it makes sense, like they're the publishers, and while, they give that creative freedom to companies, it's not Naughty Dog's place to like reveal the game or to do that. I mean, that's up to PlayStation to market it and get the calendars all aligned. Well, I guess, the thing that I do want to throw in, not to get too conspiracy like, although I am interested in that kind of stuff. I do believe him, and I do honestly think that PlayStation is like relatively hands-off. The thing that always bugs me, and really specifically since Spider-Man 2, I just feel like there was so much evidence that Spider-Man 2 was tampered with, that PlayStation came down. And now, there could be a difference between PlayStation coming down and saying, hey, you need to meet a deadline, right? And that results in chaos, versus PlayStation coming in and saying, okay, well, we have problems with this. Because we know like large portions of Spider-Man 2 were like thrown out and things were kind of rushed. Like they've outright said those things, right? So is that because like the third act of Spider-Man 2 and all those Venom lines that were lost, right? Is that PlayStation coming in and doing that? Or is it PlayStation coming in and saying, you told us once that you were going to get it out by this time. We're going to hold you to that. And then Insomniac freaks out and says, okay, well, we got to do something, right? Which one of those is it? And honestly, because of this and because of a lot of other things, like I think we generally do hear that PlayStation is very hands-off, which is good. I wish they were a little bit more hands-off with like green lighting things, because you gotta have their their money and their backing and stuff. But if they were just a little bit more lenient to kind of like smaller things, as we've always talked about in this channel, right? But there you go. So hopefully we see it next year. But see, if you see it next year, that means it's got to come out in 2025 or 2026. I feel like if you've been working on anything since 2020, even if it wasn't your main priority, it should be getting close. At this point, you've been doing it for 4, maybe even closer to 5 years at this point. You gotta show it off. Not necessarily up to him, not necessarily up to Naughty Dog, right? But it's something that I think people are going to want to see. So let me know what you think in the comments. Make sure, as always, you're subscribed to the channel, bell icon turned on. I hope to see you all on the next one.